if we hit the debt ceiling, that's essentially defaulting on our obligations, which is totally unprecedented in American history. The impact on the economy would be catastrophic.
Well, a catastrophic game of chicken. That's how Austin Goolsbee, the head of the White House's Council of Economic Advisors, is describing the looming standoff over America's national debt. Right now, we're just $400 billion away from hitting our legal borrowing limit of $14.3 trillion, meaning Congress must vote to raise that debt ceiling in the months ahead, or the U.S. indeed could be forced into default, something that you would feel through a massive spike potentially in interest rates on everything from your credit cards to car loans, home loans, and that would just be, I fear, the tip of the iceberg. Still, some members of the GOP, especially Tea Party favorites, are threatening to vote no, on principle, of course. Others demanding budget cuts before making any promises. Sounds somewhat rational. Mind you, however, this is the exact same GOP that just a few weeks ago demanded tax cuts for the rich that are adding an estimated $120 billion to our national debt over the next 2 years. So how do the politicians on one hand borrow money from future generations to give away tax cuts so that they can keep their jobs, and then a few weeks later say you better cut something or I'm not going to do that? Are they serious? Joining us now, former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. He is also honorary chairman of the Our America Initiative and a potential 2012 candidate for the Libertarian Party. Governor Johnson, welcome back.
Well, first off, Dylan, I'm a Republican and I remain a Republican. So just to clarify that. But
understood. I apologize for the mischaracterization. I'm interested in how, from your perspective, and if you, to the extent to which you feel you can channel the Republican perspective, you reconcile policies that borrow money on the one hand to spend it for whatever the particular political interest may be, and on the other hand would want to not raise the debt ceiling.
Look, I advocate a balanced budget tomorrow, so the whole notion of raising the debt ceiling, in my opinion, I wouldn't support that. I think that this should be brinksmanship here to bring down spending, and bring down spending in a really big way. We're borrowing, 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending? I think it's the biggest threat to our national security. I think it's the biggest threat to our way of life.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I don't understand how you solve the debt problem while perpetuating things like rig trade with China, the energy issues that are plague us out of the Middle East, the inefficiency and monopoly in the healthcare system that is very profitable to those who control those assets, and we're borrowing lots of money to fund those extractions. But everybody wants to talk about cutting or spending, but nobody wants to talk about breaking up these various 20th century institutions that are preserving themselves at our expense.
No, I think you hit it. I think you hit it on the head. It's all the above. It's cutting that spending. When it comes to health care, actually bringing about real free market reform to health care, which, by the way, health care is about as far removed from free market as it possibly could be.
Yes,
but
sir.
There's all of that goes into this, that I just think this is an opportunity here to put it all front and center and get after it now. Is the debt ceiling the best way to do it? No, I think the best way to do it is to have a Congress and a president that are going to cooperate in actually reducing this spending and bringing about real job growth, about growing the economy. That would be the best way to do it. But given that we have a sense of gridlock right now, this might be a good way to bring both parties to the table to make this happen.
As a political strategist, how would you advise the GOP to navigate this issue in a way that doesn't blow up in their face? And what I'm saying is, if you look around the country right now, those who are most vulnerable to this sort of budget cuts and all this debate are the weakest among us, right? The children, elderly, the poor. The municipal functionality is what is most directly threatened through when you see the budget cutting debate. And yet those who benefit the most are those who are the most politically endowed, the banks, the corporations that are tied to China trade and Middle Eastern oil. Shouldn't the pain of resolving this at least be equally shared, if not directed at those who most benefit from it?
Well, if you just look at Medicare alone in the not too distant future is going to encompass all of federal spending. I mean, that's the growth rate of Medicare. So, you know, this would be an opportunity to take Medicare, block grant Medicare to the states along with Medicaid, and let the states determine how to deliver health care to the poor and to those over 65. I mean, that's just one segment. But this is a way to precipitate this kind of thing happening, that we might actually see some real progress in all these areas. And no, we've all got a heart. We don't want anybody to be harmed, but in this case, continuing to borrow 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending, that's a catastrophe that's here, that's got to be addressed now.
But don't we need to deal with the extraction before we deal with the spending? In other words, the reason we're spending so much money is because there's a giant hole in the bucket, which is benefiting the subsidization of the bank gambling and the bonus pool. I mean, I won't repeat myself, but there are groups of people that are benefiting tremendously from this spending that are not being engaged in any way, shape, or form by our government. At the same time, people want to cut spending. How can you talk about cutting spending when no one refuses to, or when no one will step up to the plate, I should say, to plug the hole in the bucket?
No, I don't think we're disagreeing here at all, Dylan, that all these things do need to be taken on now, right now.
Yeah, listen, I wish you all the best in trying to do that. The more of us that are doing it, whatever the theater is, I think the better off this country will be, Governor. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Dylan.
All right. Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, Republican.